Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. My name is Ken Shreve, joined today by my colleague Justin Nielsen. And on today's show, we'll take a look at a nice day of outperformance for small cap stocks, money flowing into the technology sector as well. Buying pressure maybe a little muted in the S&P 500 and Dow, but overall another constructive session. But before we get into today's stock market, let me throw it over to Justin, who, as usual, has got three stocks to watch.
Yeah, so as good as the indexes were, it was a little tough finding things to buy, but we're gonna see what we can find. We'll stick around with Ray Technologies, which is following up from some strength in solar last week. Also, Lam Research in the chip space and Flywire in the finance credit card payments.
All right. Well, let's start by taking a look at the Russell 2000, which ended with a gain. Looking at the IWM here, ended with a gain of about 1.2%. Looks like volume picked up the pace a little bit from Friday. This index, though, Justin, is really about to make a key test of the 50-day moving average here. Still looks like it's in a downtrend. So small caps not out of the woods yet, but good day because financial stocks outperformed.
Yeah, this was really about KRE, which we've been tracking with the Spider S&P Regional Bank ETF. This just looks terrible, this regional bank ETF, and you saw a nice move there, over 3% for some of the regional banks. XLF, which is the Spider sector fund for financial, that had a pretty good day, almost a percent up. So it was really about the banks doing a little bit better that helped IWM. You've got about 250 or so regional banks in that Russell 2000 index. So that's a good 10% of the stocks, and the market cap is about, again, between 10 and 15%. So that's what was really going on there in IWM.
Yeah, definitely. Good day for the financial stocks. Still seeing a lot of back and forth kind of
Yeah.
whipsaw action in the financial sector. But hey, we'll take a nice day of outperformance for small caps.
Right.
Why don't we take a look at the Nasdaq Composite, which also ended with a decent gain. Not sure we got much volume in the Nasdaq today, but it did end with a gain of close to 0.7%. And as we were talking about on IBD Live this morning, Justin, Nasdaq is making a case it wants to go higher. It does have quite a few headwinds it's dealing with, but overall, technically, it's looking pretty healthy here.
Yeah, the index itself, I can't find a fault with it. I mean, you had some really tight action. It's been maneuvering itself higher. It's trading above its 21-day moving average line, above the 50-day, above the 200-day. Really, not much to kind of complain about here. The complaint that we have is that it's not really being supported by a broad basket of stocks. This has really been a very narrow rally. The likes of Meta Platforms, Google, Amazon now kind of joining them, Apple. That's really been lifting the Nasdaq Composite to a large degree. And when you look at something like the QQEW, which is the equal weighted Nasdaq 100, you can see it's not doing too bad, but it's right there at its 50-day moving average line, not nearly as strong as what the Nasdaq 100 market cap weighted index looks like. So a very different picture depending on how you look at it. The other thing that we keep on talking about with the Nasdaq is that this advanced decline line, it's really kind of in a downtrend, and really hasn't perked up yet. So until we get more stocks participating, you might find that you're not able to keep up with the index unless you have that narrow basket of stocks that's actually working right now, those mega
Yeah,
caps.
that is very much true. Let's move over and take a look at the S&P 500. I think that ended with a gain of about 0.3 of 1%, still holding above the 50-day moving average here. And even though we have an elevated distribution day count for the Nasdaq Composite and the S&P 500, I really have only seen 2 days in the S&P 500, maybe 425 and 5.2, where we saw 1% declines in higher volume. So I wouldn't really look at it as a market that's under distribution here, but of the 5 distribution days that we're counting on the S&P 500, only 2 of those declines were 1% or more. So anyway, that's a look at the S&P 500. Let's take a look at the Dow as well, which ended with a very tiny gain, up 0.1%. Clinging to its 50-day moving average here. And let's see, we did look at the KRE regional bank
Yeah.
ETF. Yeah, okay. So
But we can
uh,
take a look at RSP. We took a
That's
look
right.
at QQEW, but we can take a look at RSP, which is the S&P 500 equal weighted. And here again, you see a very different picture when you look at the S&P 500, that we were just showing, that has a nice kind of, trading range that it's doing right there above the 50-day moving average line. But when you look at the equal weighted, a very different picture, a lot clearer downtrend here, been struggling to get above its 50-day moving average line and its 200-day moving average line. Those have been providing resistance lately. So again, it just kind of speaks to that, the broad-based action is not showing nearly as much strength as the indexes are.
It's interesting. You look at RSP. If you also pull up the New York Composite Exchange, NYSE Composite Index, looks very similar
Yeah.
to RSP. Almost an identical setup here, but also indicative of just not great breadth in the market here. So the NYSE Composite Index still, trying to break out of its downtrend as well. So, all right. Well, why don't take a look at a couple of other index ETFs. I want to take a look at semiconductors, SMH, because one of the stocks we're going to talk about is Lam Research. And what do you see here in the semiconductor ETF?
Nice move back above the 50-day moving average line. So this is something that we really want to see chips participating more. I mean, chips are just so critical for our economy now. And, this has been kind of struggling right there underneath the 50-day moving average line. So I was a little bit heartened to see that there was that move above the 50-day moving average line. And that was bringing up, again, more chips. Let's take a look at some of those and we'll take a look at Lam Research today.
All right, sounds good. Well, let's go to some individual stocks here. I was noticing a really strong gain Friday for ARRY
Yeah.
Technologies, and it did follow through nicely. Now we did get a nice earnings report. There's been a lot of selling in the solar group, but still seeing a lot of good fundamentals inside this group. Companies showing good earnings and sales growth, and ARRY Technologies is a good example, a good response to earnings on Friday, and some follow through today.
Yeah, so you had the earnings a little bit earlier than that, but First Solar just recently, I mean that had a big move that was kind of driving some moves in solar, especially Array. That was with an acquisition that they were doing that I guess got the investors pretty excited. So TAN, the solar ETF doesn't look nearly as strong, but First Solar and Array Technologies look very different. I like how it's cleared this area of resistance. If you just kind of draw a line. Whoop, not an alert. Let me draw a line here. Just along 22 and a half, you can see that we kind of broke above that area today. Nice volume both on Friday and today. So that's kind of a good picture. And for the most part, we've had more blue spikes above this average volume line here. So that's a positive. If you go to the weekly chart, you can kind of look at the up down volume. That's 1.3. Accumulation distribution rating of B, so that's good. Overall, this is a stock that's showing strength. The one thing you do have to be careful of, these solar stocks can be volatile. So one of the reasons why TAN sometimes is a little bit more attractive is because it reduces that volatility. But on the flip side, TAN is lagging, so you're going to get some of those watered down results if you go with TAN. Array and First Solar are definitely looking very different compared to the rest of the sector.
I'm still amazed that First Solar moved as much as it did.
Yeah,
When
that
this was an
was stunning.
acquisition of less than $100 million. I mean, this was a pretty tiny deal that First Solar announced last week, but the stock did move powerfully. Yeah, there it is.
Mhm.
All right, moving on to Lam Research in the chip equipment group. Now, when Lam Research reported earnings recently, the earnings and revenue declined. But here's a stock that looks like it's ready to make an upside breakout. It may have broken out today. So fundamentals not looking so hot here. You don't have great estimates, but a stock that is made a nice move today, and maybe you could have more upside here.
Yeah, I mean, you look around and the estimates are pretty dismal, in a lot of stocks that we've been looking at. Certainly those recession fears are showing up in those estimates. But, you look at the technical action here, you really were trading fairly tight. You were remaining above that 50-day moving average line. Remember, in comparison to what SMH, the VanEck Semiconductor ETF was doing, this was showing relative strength versus that, having already gotten above that 50-day line. And, it really kind of was showing some tight action. So a lot of times when I'm looking at tight action, What I want is to see some evidence that the institutions are willing to get involved. And that evidence comes from not only buying price action, kind of bringing you out of resistance, but also some volume behind it. And that's what we saw today. Some nice volume move behind this, pop above. Really cleared this 548.95. Add 10 cents to that 548.85. That cleared that area. We closed at 552, so it is a breakout. But also, you kind of had an early entry here around 533, 536. That's what we were kind of using for swing trader as we added that today. If you want more information, this is also the stock of the day today. So Patrick Seitz wrote a nice article on that to kind of give you a sense of what's happening. He covers a lot of the chips. Really breaks it down. This is in the semiconductor equipment space. You got the manufacturers, you got the fabless. So what is it that Lam Research has going on that's making it a leader? Certainly, NVIDIA is the one that's capturing a lot of eyes right now with how strong it's been in the fabless space. But we are looking at other areas in the chips that might provide some more oomph to our portfolios.
Yeah, most definitely. It's going to be hard to see the Nasdaq making meaningful progress with at least help from some chip stocks. So to see that move in SMH today, the VanEck Semiconductor ETF, and also a nice heavy volume gain for Lam Research, that is certainly encouraging. All right, final stock is going to be Flywire, probably a name that many of you might not be familiar with. FLYW is the symbol here. This is a provider of cross payment solutions, and they cater to college students across the country. Some volatility in the stock last week on earnings, but a nice heavy volume gain today.
Yep, I've got my middle child that's about to take off for college next year, so I might have to look into this a little bit more. But very strong move, over a 5% move today. And again, this was following a lot of tight action here. It really tried to clear this area around 28.56 back in February. Immediately failed, which is something we're seeing a lot of times. These breakouts just immediately fail. Recovered, tried to break out again, but really didn't go anywhere. But this entire time, it's really held above this 50-day moving average line, and got support there. This last two touches. Now today, very strong move. Lots of volume. Look at the volume since this earnings report happened. And again, that was a little bit of a wild day on that earnings report. But since then, I mean, we've had some really nice blue volume spikes. All of these spikes above average volume on the plus side. So some of these moves weren't too big, but again, the fact that you've got some volume coming in here means that you're seeing some interest from the institutions. So that's something that is worth watching. That's kind of like the footprints of the institutions. So with the move out today, it's arguably extended because you see this blue shaded area. But one could argue that, hey, because of all this tight action, it maybe was providing another entry point. Taking a step back to the weekly, you could say, okay, well, maybe this was kind of a little bit of an area here as it crossed resistance. But you just have to be careful in this market because a lot of these breakouts haven't been working. A lot of these moves into recent high territory quickly failed. That's why we've been leaning a little bit more towards those early entries. But this was definitely something that we've been watching and had some nice price action today with some volume behind it.
Yeah, noticing a good fund sponsorship as well in Flywire as well, which is another kind of feather in the cap here. This company is just on the verge of turning profitable. I think it turned its first profit, or it's going to turn its first profit this year in 2023, and then it's got a big triple-digit estimate for 2024. So, good growth story here, good fund sponsorship, and pretty decent looking stock. So, all right, well, that'll do it for today. Thanks very much for tuning in. Justin, thanks for your insight as always. If you haven't checked out IBD Live yet, just go to investors.com/IBD Live. We'll be going on air tomorrow morning, just before the market open, 6:30 a.m. Pacific time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. And we go for a solid hour 45, hour and a half, something something like that. And tomorrow, David Ryan, our special weekly guest, will be on, three-time U.S. investing champion, hedge fund manager, former portfolio manager at William O'Neill and Company. So he's just always fantastic to have on the show. So please join us tomorrow morning. If you haven't done so yet, investors.com/IBD Live. You can sign up. And again, that'll do it for today. We'll see you back here. Actually, it'll be Justin and Ed will be back here tomorrow for the Stock Market Today video. So see you back here on Wednesday.